successful with all of these people voting. That was the end of the linear rail. And with Capitol Records building has fallen down from the destruction. The monsters are going to be going across these stepper motor actuator rails there. And Perkins is going to show us one more time how the monsters are going to look when they go across. That's spooky. You just see the top of him like Godzilla in the water. What do you say? Hey, you curious? The concept for this project was something that we could put student art up in a physical, interesting setting and involve the students in this presentation that I was going to give, which is how to connect Node-RED to physical things. And we gave away a lot of prizes. The school made these shirts with my characters on it, and then I gave away stickers that I had and toys that I make. And I gave this little tutorial on how to create things in Node-RED. I showed a little bit of the Arduino code, but didn't get too deep into that, but mostly showed how easy it is to connect things all together in Node-RED. And then I showed how I have my RFID reader set up to change the hue lights, and showed a bunch of different things like the smoke machine. I actually wired up to a relay. You can see this here, the two wires coming out of the smoke machine's controller, and the relay is overkill because it's an 8 relay board, but I only needed 1. And here are the actual linear actuators with their 12 volt power supply, or actually the 12 volt would be for the MacLeod, and this runs on 24 volts with that motor controller you see off to the side. And then these stepper motors had no sense of where they were, so I added these limit switches just epoxied to the side that would then tell the Arduino, hey, I'm where I need to be. Then these actual linear actuator bases have these captive nuts that I could bolt into. And then I took these things from some other linear actuator that I just screwed in, and then I epoxied these poles onto those so that they stay straight up, and I attached a level to it. And then each one of the characters, the student art, had I don't know what these were, they were from Home Depot, something for attaching, and just put them on the poles. The backdrop was made from MDF, and I just vaguely cut out the shapes that I wanted. And then epoxied little brackets to the back. This is just Gorilla epoxy, 2-part. You mix it together, gets hot and stinky. And then I applied it both to the back of the metal and pressed that down onto the MDF. And then I took additional epoxy and put it around the edges just to make sure it had a nice seal on it. It's a little bit messy from the back, but it does the job well. Then I printed out in nice quality the buildings and the characters and cut them out of the paper, like so, with a razor blade. And then I cut out vague shapes of MDF and attached the end of the electromagnets to it. And then here, without helping hands or anything, I'm just quickly soldering together the mag locks for the project. I just realized the way that I've hooked this up, and it's nighttime, so nobody can help me hold these. These are all going to fall at the same time once I unplug this to redo the wiring. So, see how that goes. Couldn't have had better timing. So as the battle's finished, these buildings would fall as if being destroyed by the battle, and then we gave out prizes, both for the artist who won that particular battle as well as the person who voted the most. And in Node-RED, it could keep track of who voted the most in that session. So here's a little bit of a rundown of what I have set up here. This is kind of my testing where I can verify if the devices are connected, and at the time of this recording, none of them were connected. So what this does is it just sends a fail command to all of the displays here, and these are just function nodes that have a display for setting whether it's connected or not, this little display. And I say if we get good or if we get fail, display that way. So what happens is at the same time that I press that verify button, it's actually going to send a signal to the device itself that says verify, and then the code on the Arduino says if I received verify, send back good, and then it would turn green. These buttons here are just for testing and maintenance of the devices. These are just UDP messages. In the future, I plan to move all my stuff to TCP because I want to be a little bit more better about if there's missed packets, which I don't think I've run into yet. I think I've been pretty lucky not to lose any packets with UDP, but it's not ideal. Here is where I was kind of giving a tutorial on how to hook up these hue lights. So the hue lights are set up in the app with these different Harry Potter houses, and this switcher comes from the RFID reader and says where to go, and then also this one connects to the Twitch chat. So it's just a node that says if it contains Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and I took out the first letter just as a quick way to let it be case insensitive. I also left in some of my old code. Before I learned about switch nodes, I used to just write the JavaScript code, and it's powerful but not ideal. There's easier ways to do it, which is why I do it with a switch node now. So this is the code for actually running the game. We have a button that starts the fight, gives a little bit of a light show with the hue lights and then delays. So I do kind of like a flash red, then flash yellow, and then turn green. And then once it hits that, we use this change on node to do a little flash of smoke, which you can, it's off screen that you can't see. And here's the game flow itself for that button. It says if we receive start, then we're gonna send a payload of true out to the message. So the payload being to start the game, or to stand by or start. Then here is actually where we're taking in the chat. So we know that if we receive something from chat, well, first I'm creating an empty dictionary for each person who's chatted. And then if it has an input.channel, we know it's from Twitch. We get the reason, which is the actual text, the username. And then if it has the word storm in it, which is to vote for one side, we check, does the data exist for this user? If not, create it and start with a 1. Otherwise, increment that. And then we just use context.set of that storm data. And now we have a dictionary of whatever user said storm and how many times they've done it. And if it's their first time, it's just automatically set to 1. You can see the code below also says it for fire, which is the other side. And then it sends out that entire payload with the topic and the name out to a dashboard object, which is a pie chart. Which you can see just at the bottom of the screen. So that's the pie chart that actually shows who did the most votes. And then when the battle starts, we have a file in node that points to the battle music. And then that file in node is actually using a string buffer to send out to an audio out dashboard node. And then if we send a true to message.reset, then that means it'll stop that audio. So I have a manual way to stop it here. And then in the flow for the actual gameplay, it stops it itself. So here is our logic for if the chat contains one of those two things, to send a UDP message to whichever one of the motors should move because of that. And the motors, the Arduinos for those, have their own logic on there to only move if they've been started already by the game loop. And then once one of them hits the end and it sends a UDP message of complete, we have this case statement doing a few things. We change everything to standby. So now we're no longer able to move. We say stop and send that to the audio command, just like that stop audio button was setting the topic to true, or the reset to true. And then we play a victory music instead. And here you can see I'm actually showing that, sending the reset to true. And then when we hit the standby, we do a couple of things. We delay for 1 second and then turn on the smoke machine. So if the smoke machine is primed and ready, it'll smoke at the beginning and at the end. And then after 5 seconds, we tell it to turn off one of the mag locks. So we just simply send the value of off to the mag locks, and it knows to just do the next one incrementally on the Arduino. And lastly, we do some flashing of the lights. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that gives some ideas on how you can create similar effects with Node-RED and other microcontrollers like Raspberry Pi and Arduino. Thank you again for watching and have a great day.